from PRX.
Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and swamp-based beings. It's time for the Sleep Podcast that's here to put you to sleep. Because it's time for Sleep With Me, everybody. The podcast that puts you to sleep with, kind of silly, usually start out into silly. It's a combination, actually, of silliness and seriousness. Because I'm here to help you fall asleep and I'm here to take your mind off of stuff. But up front, I want to say that you're important. This show is built out of a place of compassion and empathy, or a growing place of it, me learning what those words mean and trying to figure that out. And that means talking to you because you're important, your sleep is important, and your mental health is important. And I want you to make sure that you take steps to take care. There's going to be resources in the show notes. To organizations that can help right now. We have a sponsor that can help with that. And that also means that the health and the mental health of the members of our community matter, and that Black Lives Matter, and that what happened to Walter Wallace in Philadelphia is not okay, because it's our response to people in mental health crisis that we have to really look at as like our entire country. We have to look in the mirror. So that when people are having a mental health crisis, their life isn't in jeopardy and it's taken care of. And so I'm going to have links to organizations in the show notes because it's important. Just like your health is important, the members of our community's health is important. And I know at bedtime it's not always easy to remember, but it is important. And that's how I really create this safe place coming up here. So there's going to be links to organizations that you can use to take steps to help yourself and to help say, hey, let's make some changes here, and also get out and vote, please. That's another way to have your voice heard. And here's a couple ways I'm able to bring this podcast twice a week. Hey, before we get on here, I just want to make trying to make these Patreon messages as short and sweet as possible. So here's the thing. I'm here on a regular basis to create this podcast for you. I work hard, so it's here, and you can count on it on Sundays and Wednesday nights, plus all the old episodes. And I put a lot of work into the show. And I put a lot of things into making sure the show can stay free for you. So think about it. If you get value out of the podcast, we don't get paid by the platforms the podcast's on. We rely on listener support and sponsor support to be here. So if you get value out of the show, if you see, just let me ask you, do you think the Sleep With Me provides you is worth $10 a month or $20 a month or maybe even $5 a month? If you're in a position to do so and you say, yes, Scoots, you know what, the podcast is worth $20 a month to me. Support the show on Patreon, sleepwithmepodcast.com/Patreon, and say, hey, I'm a rebel. I'm going to pay for a free podcast because I know a lot of work goes into it. I know a lot of people benefit from it, and I know I benefit from it, and I care about the show. I love knowing it's there. It gets even better than that because now Patreon has annual memberships. So you could save, if you do an annual membership, you get a free month of patronage. So you could sign up at the $10 or $20 level and get $10 or $20 off. And that really, really helps me because one of the biggest challenges with Patreon is declined credit cards. And the cards, some people just never notice and never update their credit cards. And so an annual membership takes that out of the equation. So think about it. If you get value out of the show, you're in a position to do so. If you're not, don't worry about it. If you're new, don't worry about it. If you only listen once or twice a month, don't worry about it. But if you listen 4 or 5 nights a week, or 4 or 5 episodes a night, and you're in a good place right now, think about supporting the show. Sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron, Patron. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, it's time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone. The one part of the podcast I need you to hear, I popped my peas. I even had a crackle in there. There's usually Sleepy has very little snap, crackle, and popping. But I'm popping with joy because I get to bring you this podcast twice a week because of listeners who supported the sponsors and let the sponsors know about it, amplified their support. So I want to thank Charlotte and Natty, who both supported Air Doctor. Charlotte put it up on Instagram and on Facebook. And then Natty sent an email directly to Air Doctor and let them know. I want to thank Rebecca, who got a Helix for her boyfriend who was having, trouble with his back and loving it. Shared it on Instagram. I want to thank Christy, who shared on an Instagram story about sun soil, and Casey, who sent me a message because Casey sent Sweaty Betty a message. Got that sweet animal print on those Sweaty Betty tights. Thanks. And if you support a sponsor like Charlotte, Natty, Rebecca, Christy, or Casey, just tag me in a social media post, send them a message, give them a call so they know their support is being heard. Because, ads get bought through one people and then, there's many layers. And if you want, sponsors probably want to feel good too, or the people that are responsible for it want to feel good and like the ads are working. So let them know about it, then let me know about it, and I'll try to thank you here on the Sleepy Supporter Zone like Charlotte, Natty, Rebecca, Christy, and Casey. That's the first part of Sleepy Supporter Zone. The second part of the Sleepy Supporter Zone and the third part of the Sleepy Supporter Zone I'm mashing up into one tonight. I want to make sure you have the support you need to get connected if you're having a tough time wherever you are in the world. There's links to organizations that can connect you with resources right in the show notes right now. And I want to encourage you to take this step because, I can put it out there, and I know it's not easy, but take that step. Click on that link, look it up, and take that step and find out that there's people out there that can help. That's one part of Super Supporter Zone. And the second part is supporting the members of our community. Here in the U.S., that means letting your voice be heard, and that includes by voting. And I support voting. I don't have a perfect voting record, but, I do try to vote in every election. And I want to encourage you to get out and vote if you're comfortable in person. But, if not, it's perfectly reasonable to drop it off at a ballot box. And I'm going to have links to those of you that are in the U.S. To make sure, you say, okay, wait a second, let me get out and vote. Or let me find what are my options. I'm going to have links to options so that you can let your voice be heard. And, when you let your voice be heard, it is saying something to the rest of your community. You're saying, hey, I want to be a part of this, and I want to be a part of change, and I want to be a part of solutions because I care, because I'm involved. And again, just like that other step, it's like taking that step to be involved, to feel a little bit of empowerment. So that is the end of the Sleepy Supporter Zone, which is now over. Oh, Mystery Bart, a lot of people help out on this show, including you, and people can book you if they do it early enough to commission a holiday gift, a song as a holiday gift, right?
Posty poster song sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the legend. Also edits episodes. Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer, and Ashley. Eric and the team let us down. Or on the website. I am the mystery bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at JonathanMann.net. I'll write a song for you. It's almost Christmas, y'all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. We're raising money for the Water Wheel Foundation, and Scooter might get a perm.
Thanks, Mr. Bard. That's song.jonathanmann.net. And I'm at Dearest Scooter on Twitter and Instagram. Dearest with a T. I say Dearest. And what else? Oh, if you're listening to a podcast app, make sure you're subscribed. That way you get updated when new episodes come out. And make sure you're at 1x or below. And that Smart Speed and Vocal Boost are turned off, or whatever your app is. Those are in their settings of your app. And if you want to learn more about your podcast app and how to use it, just go to YouTube and type in the name of your podcast app. There'll be tons of videos on almost every podcast app and all the features there. And that's it. What do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble, getting to sleep, trouble, staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether that's, thoughts on, things on your mind, thoughts about the past, present, or future, thoughts from the day, the repetitive thoughts from people repeating stuff. Any thoughts? Obviously, I'm familiar with those. It could be feelings. It could be like emotions that are coming up for you related to those thoughts that are just there. Because I guess as human beings, we emote. I know we do. Because I spent about 25 years trying to not, and I learned that doesn't work so well. So feelings, any physical sensations, that's another thing that can get in the way. And I'm here, whatever it is. It could be one of those things. It could be time, temperature, changes in routine, schedule, whatever it is. I'm here to take your mind off of whatever's keeping you awake and keep you company while you fall asleep. And what I propose to do, and it's more going to be, I'm proposing a proposal to attempt something. Which that's interesting. I wonder if I can make it back to that thought, because that's the story of my life, is proposing to attempt something, and then I outthink myself. And some of you may be already not. You say, man, that's something I can relate to, barely, because I can barely follow what you're saying. But yeah, I propose to attempt things all the time. In this case, I've followed through quite a few times on this podcast. So what I'm going to propose to attempt to do, because in this case, it's two ways it has to get to you. But I'm going to I have a safe place here, rolled out, padded, puffed up, smoothed, padded, rubbed it down. I said safe place. I can hold my hand on my heart while my other hand further smooths and pats that safe place, just like you would when you say, hey, come on over. There's a nice spot for you here. Or would you prefer this spot over here? Oh, you prefer, I don't need to pat your spot. Don't worry. No, you like it cool to the touch? So I'll just, from 5 feet away, I will do a counterclockwise imaginary smoothing and patting and rubbing down of your safe place. Or no, you're right, I could just give you a map. You could just discover your safe place on your own. Sure. Whatever it is, the next step is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, which you've probably already seen a few, superfluous tangents, extra words or word fragments, segments of words and sentences. I guess what's the difference between a fragment's more something like you break off, right? You say, well, that's a fragment. It's been a fragment is something that's gone through fragmentation, where a segment, I guess, segment feels more geometrical, everything's geometrics. You're right, brain. Was that my left brain or my right brain that said that? I think it was my left brain that said I'm right. There's some irony. But yeah, segmentation, it does feel more, could I say delineated? Would that make any sense when it comes to where fragmentation feels a little bit more slightly chaotic? Not chaotic neutral. I'd say, what's your character's cool? I'd say, well, slightly chaotic. Well, that sounds more like that's an alignment. Well, it's just how my character behaves. Slightly chaotic, mostly passive. That would be my character, alignment. Mostly passive, slightly chaotic. Generally, very shy and introverted, but comes across like a little bit, like you'd probably not know they were shy. You'd say, oh boy, they got an attitude. Anyway, I think I was saying I was going to send my voice across the deep, dark night and use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. So if you're new, a couple things to know somewhat up front is this podcast is very different. So see how it goes, or wonder, could I see how this goes? It's very different, I'm noticing right away. I'm not sure how to feel about it. and I'm not sure if I like this, and or you, Scooter. And I'd say, that's no problem. I understand. You may be even feeling skeptical or doubtful, and I'd say that's a very normal reaction to this podcast. That's exactly, I would be skeptical. I'd be like, wait a second. Even though I make the show, I can still immediately, I say, wait a second, there's a dude. Wait, what does he do? He doesn't, there's like an 18-minute intro where he tries to introduce the podcast. Yep, that's one part of it. Does he like try to circle back? Well, I don't know if he tries. He's an attempt to, what did he say he does? He's attempting proposal. He writes proposals. Well, he doesn't even write them. He attempts to write proposals of things he's going to attempt. He's making an attempt to write a proposal of something he'd like to attempt. That sounds like his autobiography. Now I know who you're okay, so that's the kind of person that makes this podcast, huh? Well, most of the time he says, one day I'll attempt to write a proposal of things I'm going to attempt. But right now I'm feeling, that's like, this is really what happens. This is like I say, oh boy, that's really stressing me out that can we just do that tomorrow? The attempting to propose what we're going to attempt. Please. That's really like it happens during most of my day. I say, please, this is like literally, this is, if you want to peek behind the curtain, you're getting it now. You say, Scoots, what's one thing that happens to you every day? You must have, do you listen to the bird songs and skip the loo? And I said, no, but you could tell I wish I did that. But, no, usually I get into an internal debate about a proposal, attempting to make a proposal to attempt things. And I usually, if it was a debate, I guess I would lose that debate. But usually it just wears me out. And I say, oh, God, I just can't do it. Just can't do it today. Because there's something I've been putting off. It's curious. If you're listening and you know what I'm talking about, you see, isn't that curious? Why can't I get that done? And now I've gotten to a place because of the podcast where I say, well, at least I can be curious and somewhat kind about it. Still exhausts me, still a little bit embarrassing and perplexing and confusing. And he said, well, yeah, I can get this other stuff done. I just don't understand why I can't get that done. I can't even get a proposal attempt. And he said, well, just do. Then there's that purdy parse of you, the internal. This is, well, just get it done. Just do it. Quit wiffle waffling. And I'd say, and I think this is if there was I think this is more of a pejorative term, but feigning couch, I think, is something that used to be a thing. Or it looks like a chase lounge. And they would have these in parlors, I think this was definitely invented by the, what do you call that, patriarchy. But if there's a patriarch that used a fainting couch, it would be me. Because I guess technically am I a patriarch because I'm a father? I don't know. I'd prefer not to be in the patriarchy. I would spend a lot of time on a fainting couch, but I'd use more, it'd be more like sweating after having a rigorous debate with myself about attempting to get something done. Oh, boy. Trying to introduce a podcast to new listeners. But, yeah, I had to get real there, new listeners, because that's just who I am. I'm a person who attempts to propose to attempt things most of my life. Even now, you'd say, really, Scooch, you're not skipping to the loo. And I'd say, my darling, sometimes I am, and so sometimes you can hear my joy. I do have that, especially when I can make something, I can sneak something like that and skip to the loo with my darlings, my Borbays. I don't know what, maybe, but you see, actually a lot, this is true. I haven't skipped to the loo with double O. But I might try to do that. Let's try to do that. Let's just agree, talk about whatever part of us would put me on a fainting couch because they say, well, can't I just spend 5 minutes doing that? Oh, no, let's spend 15 minutes considering you spending 5 minutes because of all the downsides. You say, okay, you know what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to start skipping to the bathroom, skipping to the loo and saying, my darling. And then what I'll do is I'll say, my darling, when I get to the mirror, I'll do a double thumb, squirt gun. And that should be something. Like, if anybody's down for that, hashtag skip to the loo, double O. Skip into the loo. You could, let's probably be confusing because there's so many pods. Skipping IN, whatever that thing is, one apostrophe to the loo. I might even put the loo. I probably spell loo sometimes, LOU, and then you got to autocorrect. Let's not even attempt it. It's just too much. I got to lie down. But that could be fun. I'm going to do it today. Hopefully I'll remember. The good thing about the podcast is you'll remind me. And the cooler thing is you're far in my future. So maybe by then, you see what happened to that sleep podcast? He stopped making that, and he said, yeah, he's making the skip to the Lucast. He changed the world. Remember how 2020 was going? Do I ever? Yeah, well, in September of 2020, late September, he was skipping to the bathroom, and it caught fire. And once everybody started skipping to the bathroom, there were some twisted ankles and things. And, you say, we got to even be more careful about those toys, Junior. Now that I'm unfortunately, he bankrupted all of the last great feigning, the great feigning couch barons. They were really, everyone thought it was other things, but it was really the barons that ran feigning couches. That was what 2020 was all about. Once they were undone, everybody was skipping to the bathroom or the loo or something to the, whatever fun thing you can do that rhymes with WC or banyo. Or, you know what I mean? So, oh boy, I'm supposed to be telling new listeners about the pie. Oh, I have a tendency to go off topic. That's one thing you should know if you're new. And so this is a podcast you don't really listen to. That rhymed with new and Lou rhyme. I just had to point that out, even though it was it's obvious. Some part of me is like, that's obvious. Oh, yeah, you're right, it is. When things rhyme, it's obvious, huh? What about when they almost rhyme? That's when I that's when I even feel stronger to point it out. Skipping to the loo with you, that would not be, you'd say, no, I'm just going to skip to the loo, not with any, just with me, my internal me, my darling, my internal darling. Okay, I got to get back to the intro. So if you're new, you're getting a really good dose of when I go off topic, but it's kind of silly. It's a little bit goofy, very strange. You're right, very strange. A grown man skipping to the bathroom can change. Who would have thought that could change the world? Not many people did. And changed his world, though. You should have seen him. He went from a total grouch to just partially grouchy. Okay, so Sleep With Me. That's the podcast I'm in the middle of trying to do an intro for. So the show starts off with a greeting. This is other things that throw new listeners off. I do a greeting. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends beyond the binary, swamp-based beings in this case, because this is Otter things. Then there's business. Business is a few minutes. Then there's an intro that's around 20 minutes of me. What we're just doing now. We're just talking. I kind of try to introduce the podcast and get you ready. And for regular listeners, ease you into bedtime. For a new listener, you say, wait a second, when's the story start? When are you going to get on with it? And I'd say eventually get there. But the intro really just, as you start to become a listener, you say, oh, I start getting ready for bed, or I get in bed, I get comfortable. Then I remember I got to skip off to the loo. Then I get back in bed. Then I'm even more relaxed. And then and the podcast was playing the whole time. And it's really something familiar because the intro kind of follows the same structure every time, but it's different every time. We've never talked about this before that I remember, which probably means I talked about it 5 times in the last 7 years. But so, man, I'm in a good mood. Like this, I really think I'm onto something. You think this could get me, like, is there any prizes that aren't like a Nobel or Pulitzer Prize that aren't goofs either? You say, yeah, we got you. Like, if Joy Germ Joan was still around, I bet you she'd give me a prize if I followed through on it. The problem would be I could skip to the loo myself, but the idea of the Skip to the Loo Foundation or something, that's too tiring. Sorry. I better just do this intro. So that's the intro. And for new listeners, it's understandable. It can be, you could have strong objections to the intro. Some people, and I don't exactly know why, but they feel like it's one big advertisement or something. It's like, no, there's ads at the beginning of the intro and after the end of the intro. But in between is like 18 to 20 minutes of content that I more or less put some work into to ease you into bedtime. So then after the intro is business, that's how the podcast structure works. Then there's a story. Tonight will be our episodically modular series that you can listen to in any order at all, Otter Things. And it's totally like relaxing and very sleepy. And then there's the thank yous at the end. So that's the structure of the show. And the other things you really need to know, which we kind of covered, you don't really need to listen to me. You just kind of barely listen. And eventually you'll adjust. And like it takes 2 or 3 times to get used to this podcast. That's what most listeners say. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have told me. It took 2 or 3 tries. First, you kind of got on my nerves. And I accept that. Like some people, like a lot of, like you'd say, what do you mean I got on your, I'd say, are you kidding me? Of course I got on your nerves. I'm a bit different. I have creaky dulcet tones, and I overuse things like skip into the loo. I don't know if you could say skip to the loo. You could try it without and be in a bad mood. I mean, somebody will say. I mean, I can say it enough times to put some people in a bad mood. But again, maybe then it's like, oh, this just wasn't the podcast for me. I prefer march to the loo. And I say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's probably you're probably like, yeah, you might be looking for something different then. Though if you marched like a robot, then you say, well, no, I think you're asleep with me, listener. I could see that. March into the, robot. That's where robot goes. Marching robot goes to the bathroom. The roo. And then they say roo, sweet pickles. Okay, so structure of the show. Don't need to listen. No pressure to fall asleep either. I'm going to be here for about an hour. This podcast doesn't even really put you to sleep. It keeps you company while you drift off. Or if you can't sleep or if you wake up and you need some company, that's what I'm here for. I'm going to be here making the show to the very end. So there's the story, there's the thank yous. That's the structure of the show. The reason I make the show, I think this soliloquy or whatever we went on points it out. I do a lot of overthinking. There's parts of me that are very not easy to deal with. And, I spend my whole life dealing with them at bedtime and during the day. And I don't know, they're there. And they're just parts of me. And I say, well, I'm just trying to get some sleep now. And what I learned is if I can get something outside of me to take my mind off of it, makes it easier for me to fall asleep. But I do know that when you can't sleep, whether it's one of those reasons or just something baffling, it can be really frustrating. And that's why I want to help. But that's one reason. The other reason is because you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a place where you can get some rest. And if you do, the likelihood, people who get a good night's rest are like 98% more likely to consider skipping to the loo when it's proposed to them on a sleep podcast. That's a future fact, maybe. So that's why I make the show. I want you to get some rest and have a nice place and be able to, like, that your life's a little bit brighter and that bedtime has a little bit less dread. That's why I make the show, because you are important. And if I can help you, it really would be it would make me want to skip to the loo. I mean, like, what else would it? Like, I know how it feels. I know how it feels, lonely, frustrating, and all that other stuff. So I want to help if I can. Unfortunately, like I said, this podcast doesn't work for everybody, but I really, really hope it works for you. Give it a few tries. Not for me, but for you, just to see how it goes. Because I really appreciate you coming by. I really work hard. I yearn and I strive, and I just want to help you fall asleep. Thank you again. And here's a couple of ways I'm able to bring you this show for free twice a week. Hey, everybody, it's Scoots here, and I just wanted to make this quick. I'm trying to make these patron spots quick. If you listen to the show a lot, you know I'm here. You know I care. I care about taking your mind off of stuff so you could fall asleep. You know, I've been working on the show since 2013, and I put a lot of work into the podcast, and I still put a lot of work in. If you value that work and you're in a position to do so, think about becoming a patron. But you should also think about becoming a patron if you listen to Sleep With Me a lot. Not only because you say, well, I get a lot out of Sleep With Me, let me give back. But we have some great benefits. You can connect with them through most podcast apps. You can get ad-free episodes, and those episodes don't have any of the jingles or anything that a few people find those disruptive. You could get around those at $5 a month. There's no thank yous at the end because some people let me know those were disruptive. And well, I keep those in the free feed because overall, the majority of people enjoy them. If you want to get around them, you could do that at $5 a month. And if you listen a lot, like you want to listen to all intro episodes twice a month, an all night episode once a month, behind the scenes exclusive episodes, and coming up are behind the facts of the Great British Bake Off. If you want more Sleep With Me story only episodes, access to the old episodes, think about supporting the show at $10 or $20 a month. And you can do any of that. If you're but only do it if you can. If you can't do it, that's why I work so hard. So this podcast is free. You don't got to worry about it. There's nothing wrong. I work hard so you can listen to it for free. But if you're in a position to do so and you say, yeah, I want to support the show right now, you could do it, and then go to sleep after. Go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron, Patron. Sign up, support the show on Patreon. You could save a lot of money if you become an annual patron. It also just helps the show because we can count on that money. It also helps the podcast a lot. You get 12 months of patronage for 11 months, and we know that we don't have to worry about credit cards not going through and stuff like that. So it's a huge help. It's a win-win. So if you're a rebel with a cause that gets a lot out of the show and you say, you know what, I'm wild enough to pay for a free podcast because I love it and I enjoy it and I feel like I'm a part of the show, I want to support it. Go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. Thanks. All right. Hey, everybody. This is Otter here, and I'm checking in. When we last left off, we're kind of in the middle of, I don't want to spoil anything. I don't know. I don't think our story will come to a close on this broadcast or this tape that I have, however you're listening. I don't know where you are, but I know where I am. I want to remind you all will be well. Oh, I forgot the person that introduces the podcast. Welcome to ongoing episodically modular series. I'm Emma Otter. This story's called Otter Things. And it's a tale of a town and a place beyond the swamp what does episodically modular mean? You could listen to these in any order, even though the episodes are numbered. And you could listen to them sequentially. You may enjoy them even more if this is your first episode, starting with this one, and then listening in any order you wish. But yeah, it's about odd things that happened in a place like our town, which was we're swamp-based beings, my friends and I. I'm Emma. I'm an otter. Nice to meet you. I have an older brother, Tefe, also an otter, of course, and my parents and my youngest sibling. I also have best friends, Dustin, LJ, Willow, and Billy. And I mentioned those in no particular order, where they lie on the best friend scale. All best friends, of course, and my bestest best friend knows whom they are, and that we don't even need to speak about it, or they don't say, I just wanted to double check. If you're wondering if you need to double check that you're my best friend, that means you are. Or they say, well, I just wanted to, don't ask, because it means you are. You say, well, you didn't even list me there. And I'd say, really? But yeah, that means you are, of course. And if you're confidently saying, of course, I'm Willow's best friend, that is correct. Both of those are reactions my best friend may have. And I'm secretly saying both, just so you know whichever reaction you're having confirms your best friendship of me. Just in case you listen to these broadcasts, you want to send me a letter. I thought, and I say, yeah, of course. Oh, if you're thinking you thought we were best friends, we are, of course. This is just a little test in the middle of when I'm supposed to be. So this is a show called Otter Things, where I recap some odd things that happened to all of us in the place beyond the swamp where we live. We actually live in the swamp. It has to do with the place beyond the swamp. Let me see if I can give you a short version. My friends and I were playing Bards and Big Bunnies, a role-playing game we normally play. We played till late one school night, a Sunday. Not late, 8:40. My friends headed home. On the way home, Willow took the path less taken and was led on what you could define as a wild goose chase by a goose bunny. That's right, a bunny and a goose, probably from another universe or created by some other powerful force in another universe. And Willow was made to be in a crib. Also, my brother's someone my brother had gone on dates with, named Babs, had also been taken that path less traveled. Now, I might as well just keep going on that. If you did take that path less traveled, we found out with Babs is that you can, something about, this is someplace that's like on the border, like tracing paper between our universe and another universe, and it's underneath the swamp, or maybe also in another world. But that you can slowly be migrated to that world, that universe, and then a doll, at least in this situation, will remain in your place. I don't know the mechanics of it because I don't think it's even earthly. I don't know if it's I don't know what's happening. But I do know that we were trying to catch our friend Willow and get her back with the help of Billy, who we had met not that long after we started looking for Willow. And we found out that we now know Billy's a platypus. We thought Billy was a duck-billed beaver. I mean, that's a pretty easy mistake to make, especially since we've never met a platypus before. And technically, according to research, platypuses are not, they're from across the oceans. But so we met Billy. It turned out Billy lived in the place beyond the swamp, which was a secret lab of the Greater Swamp Authority, where they were doing things to try to figure out, because usually we have a community-based resource way of living. They were trying to figure out more of someone used a term, and I don't know exactly what this means, military-industrial complex, but I don't know if that's accurate. But something like that, where they said, well, we need to use these powers. Now, Billy actually has powers. You could say they're magic powers. You could say she's a magic user, or you could say something else, but she can throat sing or sing and do things that normal swamp-based beings can't, like move stuff, slow stuff down, make things deflate. So when she sings a song, the example would be pump up the jam. Something would be pumped up, and then jam would come out of it. So we were hoping to use her powers to help us. Now, at the same time, my brother Tefe and his friend Dari they we all said, okay, we're going to all work together to get Willow. We found out where Willow was, which was both in the place beyond the swamp and in the parallel world. So a bit confusing. The adults said, we'll handle that because the idea of parallel worlds or universes is a little too much for you kids. Typical authorities. But Dory and Tefe, they realized that the big bunny was still in play. And so they set forth to distract the big bunny. I think they ended up in a cargo net, but they did distract the big bunny, I think, long enough. Hopefully, well, we don't know right now. We just know they set off. I do know that they distracted the big bunny. They also had help from Babs' friend, Dari's friend Babs, who had somehow sent a projection of herself into an Audi Ruxpin doll to help with leading the bunny away. So that way that Leon's our community resource officer, and Dari and Willow's mom, Frances, they had headed to the place beyond the swamp. They dealt with the authority figures there, and I believe they did some smooth talking so that they could start to go look for Willow in the place beneath the swamp, where whatever this tracing paper universe, these two universes are coexisted. They're not coexisting, I guess, but they're overlapping. So that's where the adults are. They're getting ready to go in, I think. Dari and Tefe are in a cargo net, and we're at the high school, not our school, where we had used Billy's powers and built a kind of soundproof room dome to find where Willow was so the adults could go look for her. So now we're just kind of sitting around, the four of us. And I guess you could say boring. But basically, I guess, welcome back. It's the most famous resident of our town. He's smooth, he's cool, and it's Mr. Antonio Banderas. Thank you, Emma. The ladies, thank you, everybody, for your kind words. Yes. It's been a while, Emma, and plus I'm used to be dealing with a scooter. This is interesting. So, the ladies, the gentlemen, the boys, the girls, the friends beyond the binary. It's time for Otter things. Splish, splash, yeah. Thank you, Antonio. So we were sitting around, so we knew the adults were gone. And it's pretty typical, especially middle schoolers. They say, well, leave those middle schoolers out, they're on their own once again. And so we were on our own. And what did we do? Or what was going on? Well, what happened was at first we were just sitting around. Where is everybody? Oh, they're all gone. Well, hopefully they'll get back with Will and everything will be great. Then we said, what are we going to do? And then Vaughn and LJ said, let's go, they get those mini pecan pies with walnut dressing that they put on. There's a school dessert you could purchase. Vaughn said, I know where they keep those. So Vaughn and LJ went and they were looking for the pecan, but he calls them pecan or pecan pies. So they went to go get those. And then Billy and I were alone. And I'd been thinking a lot about Billy because, we just met, but I feel like I knew Billy for a long time. And I think we talked about it on another, I just really felt connected to Billy. I wanted to be closer to Billy. I was having feelings. And Billy, was very quiet. Billy, would say stuff, but not a lot of stuff. And I said, Jesus, when this is all over, I guess I was speaking without asking, but I said, you could come live at our house. Like, I'll live in the basement in the blanket fort. You can have my room. But you'd be close to Tefe's room. And he kind of, even though he uses cologne and stuff, body spray, he kind of, he's a boy otter that passes gas. And Billy said, passes gas. And I said, like, farts. And then I made the smelling sound. And Billy said, oh, okay. So, we were kind of laughing. And I said, in a time like this, some people hold hands to comfort one another and to feel close because I already feel close to you. And Billy said, I feel close to you too. And we sat a little closer together. And then Billy put her head, her head, not her bill. Her bill was down, put her head on my shoulder. And I put my arm around her. And we just sat there in the gym, and Billy started to slowly fall asleep. And I was holding her up, kind of thing. Like she was sleeping. Now, to be honest, like it was both riveting and, I had to try to keep my posture. It wasn't relaxing. There was part of me that was like, wow, I like being this connected to Billy and her relying on me to comfort her to sleep. She had a long day. But I was also like, okay, now she's leaning on me. I don't want her to wake up, and so now I have to maintain a posture. It would have been more ideal if I said, if she said, oh, I'm going to fall asleep on you, get in the most comfortable position where you could still support me, then I'll fall asleep, So I was trying to, they say, pull in your belly button and, stretch out, sit tall. So I was trying to do that. It took a lot of focus, and I was wondering where those two were with the pecan pies and if one of them would feed me a pecan pie. And then I said, I hope they bring something to drink. And then they came back with tons of pecan pies, and I made the shush sound, and they were shushing, which is hard for Vaughn. And also Vaughn tripped and dropped a bunch of pies. They're not actually pies, they're tarts, I would say. And then came into the room, and we sat down, and I said, what do you think the adults are doing right now? And I said, that is a good question. And actually, I could tell you what they're doing now, because I know all will be well, though we still have a journey to travel. So Leon and Francis were getting on these. They had made a deal with the Dr. Max, who runs the lab in the place beneath the visitor center and the place beyond the swamp. And they were putting on these suits. They said you got to wear anti-goop suits into this world because it's full of a strange goop from the goose bunny. And Bull said, like goose droppings? And they said, no. Like goose droppings and feathers mixed with ectoplasm. And Bull didn't realize that ectoplasm was actually like a goop. He said, that's my favorite flavor of high C punch. And Dr. Max said, what do you mean? And he said, you didn't have that when it was a thing. It was promoted. It was delicious. And Dr. Max says, strange, I can remember. Leon says, strange, I can remember the taste of it to this very day. Probably it was like, he said, well, what is it like? He said, like fruit punch with melon, maybe? I don't know. Or orange. It was just good. I don't know. And then Dr. Max said, was there any fruit in there? And he said, no. Probably wasn't even a fruit drink, they probably said. Simulated fruit drink. And then Leon said, yeah. And Dr. Max said, well, I'll leave you. Thanks for the information. What we didn't know at the time was that Dr. Max was headed our way with so Dr. Max actually was gathering all these weasels Dr. Max worked with and getting them ready to come see us. To take Billy, but I think that Leon had an extra plan. But let's stick with Leon and Francis. So they got in their suits, and then they had to head through this goop hole, which was basically a hole filled with goop in the wall, right by the part of the lab where Billy had her quiet room, because she had opened up this hole when she was running from the bunny. And again, this gets confusing because I said, well, I thought that was real or was in her imagination. So I guess some of this stuff, it happens with your mind projecting into other worlds, which would make the stuff with Dory and Babs make sense. And they'd asked Dr. Max how they get there, and Dr. Max said, you got to go up into the wizard's tower, and that's where things will get strange. So they headed up, first they headed through a tunnel, then the tunnel started to spiral up, and as they were spiraling up, they saw little windows, like they were spiraling up a tower. But the windows didn't really show. They said, that looks like, aren't we underground? Because and they also said the further they progressed, even though like physically looked like they were going up, they felt like they were going down. And Francis even said, my ears are kind of feeling like I got to swallow to clear them. So they kept spiraling, what they thought was up and down at the same time. And finally they came out of the bottom of a tower, which they said, well, we've been going up for 25 minutes. But it felt like we were going down, even though we were going up and passing windows with a view of something. And again, they said it looked like a flat grassy area. But when they exited this tower, they looked up and there was this giant wizard's tower of sorcery behind them. And in front of them was a berm, which looked like the road outside of the visitor center that separates our swamp from the swamp the visitor center's in. And everything was made of mud, so it was kind of like this version. And then they said, are we sized down? And they actually were, but there was nothing to compare. They had shrunken down because this was the same smaller version of the town, this is outside of town, that Dory had seen earlier. And I think for them, they traveled through that tower. So that had to do with them sizing down. But so they saw a berm with the road. There was a vehicle on the road, just a toy vehicle made out of mud or some sort of something like that. And Bull started to have a little drift back in time because it was a station wagon on the road. And he could remember the time he was when him and his family were moving to River Bottom and he was packing the car. And he really wanted to get on the road because this was his big shot at becoming a lounge singer. And he wanted, he felt like his family. And his little daughter said, Papa, don't forget to put my cinnamon spice bodacious bakery playset in the car. I was playing with it this morning when I made you breakfast. And I don't want to forget it, because I had to make breakfast. You didn't eat your breakfast either, Papa. And he said, well, we got to get on the road. He had a deeper voice back then, or tried to. And he said, well, let's just put my guitars and my amps in. Those are, the precious cargo. It's going to create our life in River Bottom. And then I'll have time for breakfast, sweetums. When I have, reached the pinnacle of, local performance stardom as a lounge singer. But I'll try to find some space. Run along, use the potty, and let's get going here. And who knows if this was on purpose or an accident, but he, put the bake center, he had the tailgate of the station wagon down. He put it underneath the tailgate to plan on, and we don't know if he put it on the roof or he just drove away with it down there. And who knows if he accidentally or on purpose forgot it, or he was just so caught up in his dream is kind of the real thing. But as he was drifting back into that memory, he was wondering too, and he was kind of cringing as he saw himself so cavalier with what he now realized would have been important to him if he was who he was now back then. And so he felt that forlorn feeling of like realizing those facts, but he also felt some acceptance in his heart that he couldn't change the past. Also, because he knew he had to be in the present. Also, Dari's mom, Frances, was elbowing him, saying, Leon, are you here? We got to climb over this road. And as they climbed over the road, they saw down into our town. And now this was, what was very strange for them was like, this was a mud constructed play set of our town, but they were shrunken down to the size of our town. And it was covered in goop, and it was the exact size of a play set that a giant goose bunny would play with. Now, I don't know if the goose bunny made it or someone made it for the goose bunny. Those are answers I don't have. I just can tell you all will be well in the end, and all will be odd. So they said, okay, we got to find your house. And Francis said, well, that's pretty easy because this is just but then there was details, because they were sized down. Now, it was all facades, but it was all very detailed facades. So they headed through town, and they walked to the outskirts of town. And, I don't have to, step after step, passing piles of goop. And eventually, they said, this place is weird. And then they got to Frances's house, and she said, my front door's open. And they walked up to the front door, and it was a muddy front door. It was open, though, or I guess like dried mud, you'd say. She said, my back door is open, too. And he said, let's not go in the house. Let's go around and see what's going out the back door. And they went around the back door, and she said, there's shreds of carrots and peanut butter everywhere. She goes, what's that? A cargo net hanging from the tree. And it looks like it just got cut open or something. And she said, is this all made from mud or sand? And Leon said, don't think about it too much. And he said, I think this is Dari and Tefe, distracting the bunny. Because he said, there's giant bunny prints. And then Francis said, what are these other prints? And Leon said, those look like tiny otter prints. And he actually was interested and then Francis said, the tiny otter prints lead the bunny away from the cargo net, away from my garage. And as Leon was looking, he said, this is weird. It's like, these aren't like otter tracks at all. They're Adi Ruxpin tracks. That doll that was popular like 20 years ago. You remember Adi Ruxpin? And Francis said, yeah, it was popular like 9 years ago, actually, or 8 years ago, whenever Dari had asked for it, but it was just too pricey and spendy. And he said, okay, well, the bunny went away from your garage, but we got to find, where was Willow again? And Francis said, in the Willow's studios in our detached garage. That's where her and her friends would record audio fiction. They always wanted to play Bards and Big Bunnies there, but I said, well, no, not outside. You could record your audio dramas because that's more active, but play a game inside somebody's house. Because I knew, when we were at that age, we were much wilder, huh, Bull? And Bull said, yeah. So they started to head towards the garage, and they opened the garage door, which was, again, it opened, but they got they said, good thing we got these goop suits, because there's like, now we're tracking carrots, peanut butter, ectoplasm and other stuff all around. And the first thing they saw when they opened the garage was when the garage went back much further than... At first, they couldn't see anything other than a crib. Well, two cribs. One was empty and overturned, and the other one still had a doll that looked exactly like Babs. And Frances said, this doll looks just like Babs. This is the one that Billy had seen. And then she looked into the eyes of Babs, and she could see Babs moving as Audie Ruxpin, really disorienting for Frances. And looking back, and the bunny chasing it, and she said, "That's an those are Audie Ruxpin arms and legs." And Leon said, "Which way do you think?" Frances said, "Towards the school where we left the kids." And he said, "Oh boy." Just like I kind of accidentally planned. And she said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Don't worry about it." And then Leon switched on the lights, which still worked in a weird, it kind of gave a weird otherworldly light, but the lights went on in a cinematic way where you turn on the lights and then lights keep going on progressively further into the distance, like it's just in perspective. And this garage went back, what seemed like lights were going on miles and miles back into like a distant perspective. And Frances said, "Well, this is strange. This isn't really my garage." And Leanne said, "Yeah, this is definitely not normal." And she said, "Well, we got to figure out where Willow must have flipped over that crib and headed this way." And then they saw kind of tracks. And she said, "Okay, this isn't my garage at all." And Leon said, "Well, what's the next thing you would see in your garage if you were really there?" And Frances said, "Well, the racks of clothes they used for..." Oh, and then she noticed. It wasn't like they appeared there. They were there. She just hadn't noticed, which is even more. You see, well, those weren't there, but they are. And there was racks of outfits that Willow and I and the rest of us would wear when we did our audio dramas, because we did it in character. And she said, "But there's thousands of racks of these clothes." And Leon said, "Maybe the Goose Bunny made them, or maybe they're for playing dress up. This is weird." And it's real and not real. And Frances said, "Yeah, but we need to find Willow." And Leon said, "I don't understand. So they record themselves on a audio, like they're making an album, but they still dress up in clothes. There's no visual. They're not performing a play." And Frances said, "Yeah, they're playing it's like a version of playing dress up, or method acting, like getting in the role of a character. You like wear the clothes and you become, you get in." And Leon then started to drift away again. And as Leon turned, he saw a rack of leisure suits and ruffled coats, and he reached out, or ruffled shirts with ruffles and polyester wide collars. And he started to touch the suits, but he started to remember being in River Bottom and coming home and had spent a lot of money on a new leisure suit. And his partner saying, what did you mean you bought that suit?" And he held the bag, and he was watching himself say, "This is what I need. This is going to make the auditions go so much better." And she said, "Well, how much did it cost?" And he said, "It was not like," he goes, "We're going to have to make some changes around here." And she said, "That's the kind of price tag a big-time lounge singer." She goes, "But you're not a big-time lounge singer. You're not." And he said, "You got to pay big time to play big time." And she goes, don't you think you should be rehearsing or doing voice lessons? And then he said, this is a very toned down version of it. He said, I have talent. But even as he was watching this unfold, he kind of shook his head and realized, wow, I was not teachable. I didn't know how to try. I only knew how to fantasize, and I got a lot of amends to make. Holy moly. But then he started kind of move from rack to rack and move away from Francis. And Francis said, Leon, stop moving. This is something, where are you? And he said, right here. And she goes, okay, well, be right here with me then. Because we're in some sort of giant clothes store or something. And he said, yeah, this is exactly like, he goes, sorry, I keep drifting back to my time at River Bottom. And she goes, and things appear. She goes, this is somehow tied into our memories, in our relationships, in our families. So what else do we remember? And he goes, leisure suits. And there was leisure suits here, but there was leisure suits. I don't know what I thought of first. And she goes, well, what was it about? And he goes, well, I spent the money for the birthday party for my daughter on a leisure suit. And he goes, I know. And she goes, well, it makes sense your family's in River Bottom, and you're here. But that's a mistake. We'll deal with it another time. And he said, yeah, I probably should deal with it at another time. And she goes, well, by the way, it's not the best time, but what happened to the suit? And he goes, they hid it. And he goes, oh, well, I thought they hid it on me, but really they made my partner, she made a birthday present out of the suit because it had really nice lining, but I didn't even realize it because I was so distractible. And she goes, wait a second, what did you say about the suit? He goes, well, I thought they hid it, and I searched everywhere. And Frances froze, and she goes, hiding. She goes, when we used to go clothes shopping, especially when I'd go clothes shopping for Dory, Willow would hide inside the clothes racks when we were in the store, like when we're in that, we'd drive to River Bottom to go in the big store. And he goes, Hills or Ames? And she goes, both. And she would hide in between the clothes racks, and it was almost impossible to find her. And sometimes, it would make me have to say, Willow, come out right now. I can't find you. And she would be laughing, not knowing that how well she could hide in clothes racks. And she goes, yeah, sometimes I was shopping or I get caught up in conversation with somebody. So it was a way to kind of have power over your parent. And Leon said, well, what are you saying? And she said, she's probably hiding in one of these clothes racks. And Leon said, well, it looks like there's like 1 million clothes racks in here. And she goes, well, I don't suppose I could just think of Willow and she'd be in this. Nope, Willow's not in this clothes rack I'm standing behind. So she said, wait a second, where? Oh, no. And she goes, well, she would want us to find her, though. So she would pick clothes racks that no one could find her but us. And Leon said, okay, well, would that be like princesses or like the clothes racks from the audio drama, like an astronaut or undercover? And Francis just kept saying, no, what about a leprechaun? I see some leprechaun. Leprechaun? What are you talking about, Leon? Pirate? And then Francis went into her and she said, no, bad bards. That's where she'd be. She goes, what would a bad, he goes, well, that'd be a pirate, kind of a bad bard. She goes, no, not just a pirate, like a coat or a cape. And he goes, yeah, or a cloak. And he goes, remember those sloaks? That guy Scooter came to town trying to sell those sloaks. He goes, were those slacks and cloaks or, and she goes, that's what it would be, a cloak, or something. And he goes, what would make it, why is a cloak bad? And she goes, no, it's not, it's practical. If you're a bad bard, you probably have to be, you want some practical wear. And to be able to go under the cover, stay warm, stealth, style, flexibility, also like to use as a blanket or to sit down. I don't know how many bad bards have picnics. And they started racing around the clothes, and eventually she found cloaks, and she pulled the cloaks away. And she said, these are the cloaks. They're so dark, I can't tell. She's like, these are the color of night sky. I don't know if it's black or purple or blue. And he said, yeah, these are like velvet. And they started pulling them away. And then actually Leon said, I wonder if this one's nice. I wonder if this would fit me. Now, meanwhile, Francis was saying, Willow, Willow, Willow. There she is, behind these cloaks, curled up in a cloak. And she said, Willow, Willow, can you hear me? Can you hear me? And Willow didn't say anything. And she noticed that Willow, was cycling in and out of being a doll and being her daughter, Willow, a beaver. And she, to doll hands and doll arms and doll legs, like a doll, like a baby doll. And she said, Willow's cycling in and out, Leon. What do we do? What do we do? But then Willow was also like, Mom, is that you? Mom. But the call was coming from the eyes and not Willow's mouth. And then she saw Willow in the eyes wandering. And she said, Willow, can you hear me? And she goes, yeah, but there's like something between us, like a TV or a window. Like I can hear you through a TV. And she said, okay, come to my voice. You've got to get back in your own eyes. You have to look at me through your own eyes. And then Will said, Mom, I can't find you. I can't understand. I need something more, Mom. And they were going back and forth. Now, meanwhile, while this was happening, Leon again had another non-positive flashback. Though all will be well, that he remembered his, he finally, after the suit incident, decided he was going to start rehearsing instead of just auditioning. And his daughter said, well, Dad, would you sing me a song? And he said, no, I'm rehearsing songs. And she said, I could sing with you. He said, no, no, I'm not singing with you. I'm rehearsing. And that memory went back and forth. Not the greatest memory to have. But what Leon realized was that memory was so potent that not after that had happened and after Leon had moved back to our town, he had swore he would never sing again because of that memory. It hurt his heart. He said, how could I do that to a little kid? Just say, no, my singing's more important than yours. And that's why he's never sang ever again. But meanwhile, Frances was trying to call Willow back, and she was kind of, she was choked up. She goes, and then Leon's thinking about his singing and his life. And Frances said, Leon, I need your help. I need you to pull yourself together. I need you to help me. Willow's in between the two worlds and cycling away. But I think if we sing together, we could get her back here. Otherwise, we're going to lose her. We have to sing her back here. And he said, what song? And she goes, well, this is what I need you to do. And he goes, well, what song? She goes, well, it's a song Willow wrote called Mom's Diner. It's based on another song, Tom's Diner. And she goes, I just need you to do the do-do part. And she goes, do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, like that. Can you do that? And he said, I can. And then he started to do that do-do-do-do, that in a more musical way, like you've never heard before, in a steady way, almost like a a percussion instrument mixed with a woodwind or reed, I don't know. And then Frances started to sing, like trying to remember the lyrics that they had written at the breakfast table, and that Willow would sing, "It's always nice to see you. You're here to make my breakfast. I'm your daughter. My name is Willow. And you sing right to me." And then the do part. And then Frances would sing, I fill her bowl with extra sugar puffs, Willow. And then she said, "Well, I need you to sing. Come to us, help us sing the song. Take it from your mom." And then, like a miracle, all will be well. Willow, curled up in a cloak on the floor of a clothes store garage, said, "I'm drawing on my paper while my sister, she's rushing, and I'm thinking of my best friend and of all my close best buddies, when I feel my mommy patting me right on the head." And then Willow was back, and Mom was saying, "Oh, Willow, Willow," and she was cradling her daughter in her arms. And Willow saying, Mom, where am I? Where are we? What's going on?" And she was saying, "Don't worry, honey, don't worry." And then Leon was shaken from his drifting away and wrapping Will up in extra cloaks, including the one he liked, which I don't think was an accident either. And also was the only cloak I've ever seen that has a collar, because he still wears it to this day. But he wrapped them up, and then they headed out of they went back the way they came. Now, meanwhile, we were at the school, and we were eating pecan tarts, and eventually Billy woke up, and we were all covered in crumbs when we heard something pull up. And at first we thought it was the adults. And we looked out, but it was tons of weasels and Dr. Max and a whole crew. And we said, "Okay, we got to hide fast." So we created a trail of crumbs, go into a bunch of classrooms and under the bleachers and then into the ventilation system. And then we backtracked while we heard them trying to get in, and we hid in some lockers. Now, it was so cozy in the lockers. At first we were like, we could feel one another's breaths because we'd found that we didn't realize this, but a lot of lockers had false backs, so the school could walk up and down and check the lockers from behind. But we were in this like area, and I don't know, we were all warm and cozy. We all got cozy and drifted off. But while we were falling asleep, Dari and Tefe had come back to the school, and they'd seen it surrounded by the weasels and Dr. Max. And they said, "Okay, well, that's the people from the lab. We got to do something." Like they have them surrounded. And Tefe said, "If there was only a higher authority," and Tefe was kind of joking, hardy har, but Dari said, "You're right, like a community resource, they're the greater community resource authority. There's got to be someone much greater than Dr. Max." And she goes, "I got an idea." So she called the main community resource office. She goes, "You know how sometimes we talk about the military industrial complex taking over our schools and stuff?" And they said, "Yeah, that's just like a thing, Dari." And Dari said, they're taking over the school. I think they're getting rid of all our textbooks and I just thought you might want to go and check. So then our community resource team, which takes longer because it's not like they started to gather and head over there. And then Dari said, "Okay, well, I got another idea. Just play along with me." And she must have known some sort of, she called this secret number that you're only, like, that she knew about, she'd heard about it somehow. That's, like, about the high, like, that they're supposedly the greater swamp authority listens to. And she said, never, like, she left the phone off the hook, but she pretended like she put it against something, and she said, she dialed. Then she looked at Teffy and winked, and she said, well, I'm not going to call, forget it. She goes, it's a bad idea. And he goes, well, yeah, but you're going to, and he goes, I don't understand. And she goes, I think we should just go with Dr. Max. I mean, if Dr. Max catches the goose bunny and has the superpowered platypus, he's going to be more powerful than any other leader, not in the area, not just in the swamp, but everywhere. And Teffy said, yeah, he's going to be powerful. And she goes, we'll all just be working for him. So I don't think I should tell anybody that what he's up to. And Teffy said, it'll be like, he's like, would we call him Dr. Max, or Max King the Doctor? And she goes, I don't know, you just call him Your Majesty or My Lord, I guess. And Teffy said, I don't know, I think we should try to stop him. And Dari said, no, we're powerless to stop him. He's got his whole weasel force. They're loyal to him. And they just got to go get platypus at the high school. So, and they have those, like, there's not even that platypus doesn't even really have powers. It's the bunny that has the powers. And Teffy said, I didn't know you knew that. We were trying to keep it secret that the platypus doesn't even have superpowers. We just were using the platypus to distract people. And Dari said, yeah, the platypus is just a regular kid, but it's the bunny, the goose bunny, that has the magic powers. It was just and she goes, Dr. Max is just so brilliant. He is the most we should go see what he's doing. And she goes, if we go pledge our fealty now, we'll be in a good position to keep working for him. And then Teffy said, did you hear him say if he believes, he does, not only does he believe in humans, but he said he would work with humans. And Dari said, no. First of all, no one believes in humans. But anyone that does wouldn't work with humans because even if they were real, I think it was just a test balloon. And Teffy said, what was a test balloon? And she goes, it was to see who believed. I mean, I don't know. But, yeah, maybe we should get going to the high school. And I just won't call and tell on him to the, like, I mean, I was hoping somebody could put a stop to it, let the kids go, and just, send him home without his dinner. Dr. Max, hardy har, let's go to Tedward. And Teffy said, yeah, let's go, Doronda. And they walked off, and they left the phone there. And who knows who was listening on the other end? I don't know. But meanwhile, I was in a locker right next to Billy, and it was like our humidity of our breaths was mixing, and we were slowly drifting off for a short nap to just rest for a little while. Good night. All right, it's time to say thanks, and good night. I just wanted to thank some of the people in the recent Sleepy Supporter Zones. This isn't everybody, but it really just has changed a lot of stuff around the show behind the scenes. So I want to thank Cal, Allison, and Michelle. Thanks, and good night. Nancy, Arthur, and Lola. Thanks, good night. Alex, Heather, and Milo. Thanks, good night. Lauren, Megan, and Nikki. Thanks, and good night. Heather, Jeff, and Kim. Thanks, good night. Tori, Wendy, and Jennifer. Thanks, good night. Ryan, Brenda, and Claire. Thank you. Thanks, good night. Craig, Tina, and Giovanni. Thanks, good night. Elizabeth, Allison, and Paul. Thank you. Thanks, good night. Margaret, Nancy, and Scott. Thanks, and good night. Robin, Kate, and Lindsay. Thanks, and good night. Urban Pluck, Florian, and Katie. Thanks, and good night. Joe, Freak Ted, and Cornelia. Thanks, and good night. Kate, Zoe, and Hoff. Thanks, and good night. Jen, Jess, and Egrup. Thanks, and good night. Ellie, Holly, and Anna. Thank you. Thanks, good night. Deborah, Beck, and Leor. Thank you. Thanks, good night. Laura Pope and Morella. Thank you. Thanks, good night. Christina, Kate, and Count Sudoku. Thanks, and good night. Gabby, Frasley, and Angie. Thanks, good night. Jessica, Carl, Daniel, Julie. Thanks, and good night. So thanks, everybody. Sleep is able to be here for you because of people who support the sponsors and support the patrons. But, there's nothing wrong with not being able to or wanting to, too. And if you're looking to be empowered for a free way to support the show, you could either amplify when they talk about the sponsors, or you could just spread the word about the podcast when it comes up in natural conversation. And those are huge ways to help the show. And, that's it. Would you like me to, what's your breeze situation? How you want me to leave your feet, blanketed or unblanketed? Tented, blanketed, or unblanketed? Or do you want me to do like a quick blanket shakeout? How are your corners or your duvet cover? That's another, okay. There you go. I got it for you. No problem. Good night.